Welcome to the Future of Work podcast, where we explore what's next in work, workplace, and the human experience. You're listening to a Future of Work Expert Insights, a special format where we bring together the most thought-provoking insights from our top guests around a single topic shaping the future of work. In this episode, the topic is work-life balance, exploring how organizations can better support mental health, prevent burnout, and create environments where people can truly thrive. From emotional resilience and work-life balance to the role of innovative tools and strategies, our experts share insights shaping the future of employee well-being in a rapidly evolving world of work. We've curated conversations with three of the sharpest minds in work-life balance, each offering unique insights into emotional resilience, work-life balance, and innovative approaches to employee well-being in the future of work. Let's begin. In today's always-on world, stress, exhaustion, and burnout are at an all-time high. Wellness is no longer optional. It's essential to thriving workplaces. In this episode, we explore how experts are redefining mental health, balance, and performance in the future of work. Our first guest is Angela R. Howard, organizational psychologist and the CEO of Call for Culture, a cultural consultancy that helps companies rebuild from the inside out. She explains why clinging to outdated systems is no longer a viable option, and why the real future of work is about building cultures that enrich rather than exploit. What happens when outdated work systems collide with rising demands for well-being and balance? Are we evolving or already in revolution?
I want to say it's more of the latter. So I think that it is going to be this slow-ish revolution, but I think we're going through it now. I think the water has been hot for a while, and we're now starting to feel it bubbling over. And that's where that tension is happening. And I'll be honest with you, I do think organizations are going to fail if they continue to trust in paradigms that are no longer working, um, or they're using tactics around. I use the word exploitation. I know it's a really intense word, but truly that's kind of what our system has been built in, is how do we exploit people as much as possible? How do we suck as much productivity out of them as possible versus how do we create structures and processes and systems and leadership that ensure that people don't burn out, that we're not just sucking out of them, we're also creating a partnership where we're enriching them, we're ensuring that our responsibility around their experience is tied back to the person and not just the work. So I do think organizations who don't get on this revolution are going to fail. And we're already seeing organizations fail and people leave and turnover is increasing. And now toxic cultures, I think I read an article that they're 10 times more likely to cause attrition than like any other factor within an organization. So people are fed up. They're over it. The revolution has happened.
Angela R. Howard makes it clear. We're not just evolving, we're in a slow revolution. One where outdated systems and extractive cultures are reaching a breaking point. But what happens when that pressure pushes people past their limits? If burnout is real, how do we know when we've crossed the line from tired to unwell? As we think about creating healthier workplaces, there's another reality we can't ignore. Stress and exhaustion are quietly reshaping how people show up at work and at home. But when does ordinary fatigue cross the line into something deeper? Our next guest, Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith, a physician and burnout researcher, helps us recognize the moment when exhaustion stops being just a feeling and becomes a diagnosable crisis. Dr. Saundra helps us understand the moment when imbalance becomes burnout and what leaders can do to protect both performance and well-being. When work-life balance breaks down, how can we tell if it's just stress or if exhaustion has crossed the line into clinical burnout?
Yes, they're categories as far as their DMVs. They're categories that they're using to determine real diseases, basically. And so, one of the things I think that we have to keep in mind that because it now does have a disease category attached to it, we do need to realize that there are specific, just like there's ways I diagnose someone with diabetes, there's ways you diagnose someone with major depression. There's ways of diagnosing someone with burnout. However, a lot of us can be on the verge of something without having the actual diagnosis of it. And I feel like sometimes the being on the verge of it is what kind of is bringing it so much to the forefront. Some of the statistics you state, they vary based on really the profession. Some professions have a much higher rate of people going into burnout, particularly those that have a very high stress related aspect to their job, high change aspect to their job culture. They tend to have be at higher risk and be at higher likelihood, prevalence of being someone who's going to burn out. With the World Health Organization, they primarily narrow it down to three categories that have to be checked, three boxes, so to speak, that have to be checked for them to say someone has burnout. And to simplify those boxes, the first box is that someone has fatigue. They're tired all the time. It's not a fatigue that necessarily is related to like a medical condition. So you can't quantify why this person is necessarily tired all the time, but they are. Number two is that they no longer find pleasure in the work that they do. And so most of us, you get started with a job or a career, chances are you actually liked that profession. It's something that you chose, you wanted to do, you weren't coerced into it. And when you start noticing that, if, let's say, if for myself, if you're a physician and all of a sudden you don't like patients anymore, you don't like being around people, or you don't like the job, that's another sign that they say kind of checks that box off. And then the last one's a little bit more subjective, but I think people who are experiencing it understand this for themselves is that the work you're producing is not even at the level of what you're capable of producing. I often say it like this: you're producing from your emptiness. It's like you're showing up every day, you're present, but you are not actually passionate and engaged in the work in such a way that you're giving your best self in the process. And so I feel like a lot of people relate with one or all of those symptoms to some degree. Now, with true burnout, it becomes those three symptoms get to a place where they are debilitating. Same with depression. You can be down and blue for a moment, but we don't call that major depression because it's not really affecting your life, your relationships, the way you show up in the world. You just have those symptoms and, hopefully you get some treatment before it gets any worse than that. Well, that's where a lot of people are. Those three things they recognize: I'm tired, I'm not happy, and I'm just putting the hours in just to get a paycheck. I'm not really enthusiastic about this career. But for a lot of people, it's not necessarily changing, kind of having that severe effect on their life. It's not debilitating in any way at that point.
Burnout isn't just about sleep or self-care, it's structural. Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith reminds us, if we ignore those early signs, we're not just tired, we're on the edge of breakdown. Shows us how burnout begins, when exhaustion, lack of joy, and dwindling effectiveness take over. But what happens when traditional solutions like rest and vacation aren't enough to restore balance? As we look for new ways to protect our well-being, some leaders are challenging traditional ideas of what workplace wellness can look like. One approach, gaining attention, focuses on improving mental clarity, emotional connection, and balance from the inside out. Peggy Van de Plassche believes the future of work demands more innovative approaches to mental wellness. In this next segment, she explains how microdosing is helping some professionals reduce stress, improve focus, and reconnect with themselves and their teams. In a world where stress and burnout are on the rise, how can innovative approaches, like microdosing, help professionals improve focus, connection, and overall work-life well-being?
And so that's great that you experience it firsthand, because here we can see the three type of benefits I see usually with microdosing. The- so the first one is what you mentioned with mental wellness: reduction in anxiety, reduction of stress, reduction for some people of signs of depression. So it really, really helps you to boost your mood and remove these maybe dark glasses that some people have, that I used to have, and it calm your nervous system. So that is exactly what you're saying with why stress. because your nervous system is quite dynamic. So that is really a huge, huge benefit. The second type of benefits is connection to yourself and connection to others. So that increased empathy, increased connection really help with your communication. So in the context of work, obviously, working with your colleague, your employees, your boss, it's really, really helpful to have, I would say, a very mindful leadership. And the third type of benefits, and you haven't touched on it, but we will touch on it later, it's really the performance. And it's this increased focus, this increased attention, this increased presence and creativity. So you can see all these three buckets, whether less anxiety, less stress, better connection to others, and increased focus and attention can have a massive impact on people at the office, but also at home and everywhere in between. Yeah.
Peggy explains how microdosing supports mental wellness by reducing stress and calming the nervous system. It also enhances empathy and collaboration, strengthening workplace relationships. Finally, it boosts focus, creativity, and presence, helping employees thrive at work and in life. Thanks for listening to this Expert Insights episode of the Future of Work podcast. If you found it insightful, share it with a colleague, leave us a review, or check out our show notes for links to each guest's full interview. Until next time, keep asking not just where we work, but how we work better together.